The NHL offseason is upon us. And with the Red Wings, because that is my focus, I feel as though I've had this exact conversation before. I seem to remember actually saying these things. Steve Yzerman needs to trade the 13th overall pick. Now, we do have a couple of, I got a couple of exclusive audio here. So I asked Steve Yzerman a couple of questions. So the first question I asked him was, are we going to be trading the pick? Are we going to, take the 13th overall pick, maybe package a player or two and go out and get an established star or superstar in the league to really jumpstart this rebuild that he's got us on? So here's Steve Yzerman's answer to this question.
No.
Well, okay, that's fine. All right, we're not going to make a trade. All right, that's fine. You don't have to make a trade. All right, maybe we're going to go out and we're going to sign some superstar free agents. I don't know what the free agent class looks like, but we're going to go out there and we're going to get some of these free agent established guys and we're going to sign them. And this was Steve Yzerman's answer to that question.
No.
Okay, and then all right, now things aren't looking as good. And then I thought, okay, what if we do this? Okay, maybe we say, all right, we're gonna do a little bit of selling. It's gonna be a little addition by subtraction. So we're gonna trade off some of our guys, some of even guys you might like, maybe even the Dylan Larkins of the world, or the I don't know. It's actually the only one I can think of. Maybe the Dylan Larkins. We're gonna take Dylan Larkin and we're gonna trade him for an array of prospects and maybe some picks, and then we're gonna be able to bring up the youths. We're gonna bring up the guys out in the Toledo Walleye or the Grand Rapids Griffins or whatever. We're going to bring up all these young players, all these great prospects that I've been told about for many, many, many years. And we're going to bring them all up, and it's going to be the youth movement. We're going to be like the Montreal Canadiens. So I asked Steve Yzerman, is this what we're going to do?
No.
At this point, I was getting a little tired of Steve because he was just saying, basically, we're not doing anything. So I asked him, I said, Steve, all right, tell me what it is you are going to do. And this was his answer.
My offer is this. Nothing.
Yeah, all right. Call me a pessimist. That's fine. Call me a hater. That's also fine. We are going to go through the exact same offseason we went through last year. And here's why. Steve Yzerman has shown no acumen for making the big move. He's shown no desire to make the big move. Anytime he is asked about the potential of making a big move, there's always the caveats. There's always the, well, we don't want to give out term unless we're giving it to Andrew Kopp, in which case he can have all the term he wants. Or, well, we don't want to, lose out. We like our guys, even though we're not bringing them up from the AHL, even when they're playing really well, like Sebastian Cossa or Carter Mazur, although he immediately got hurt. But we're not bringing those guys up. It's always the same thing. It's always just, oh, okay, you don't want to do anything. You just want to coast by and live off name recognition and just hope and pray that you happen to accidentally draft Wayne Gretzky, basically. Like, this guy, day in and day out, whenever he speaks, it's the same. It's always
No.
It's always no. It's like, hey, and by the way, that audio, for the record, he was asked about the Jake Wallman trade, which was one of the worst pro moves I've seen that really doesn't get talked about nearly as much as it should among Red Wings fans because they're just in denial that he could possibly make a mistake like that. You trade Jake Wallman with a second round pick to San Jose for, I think, cash. I don't think we got a pick. I don't think we got a player. You do that. The Sharks trade Jake Wallman for a first-round pick to the Edmonton Oilers. Now, that would be enough. That would be enough to where I was like, okay, that's frustrating. We couldn't have gotten more than just cash for Jake Wallman, apparently. And then Jake Wallman goes out and is a pretty good performer for the Edmonton Oilers in their, albeit loss, in the Stanley Cup. And so then I'm like, okay, so not only did we trade a player who seemed to be pretty higher value than we ended up getting, but the player was on a Stanley Cup team. And to make matters worse, he was a defenseman and a team that had one of the worst defenses in the NHL. He was a good defenseman that we said no. And we have the worst defense, and he goes to play in the Stanley Cup. And the Sharks get a first-round pick. So basically, in that whole spiel, the Sharks get a first and a second-round pick and a decent player for, some amount of time. The Oilers get a good defenseman to help them make it to the Stanley Cup. And what did the Red Wings get? They got poopy butthole. They got nothing. They got poopy nothingness. And I am left to my own judgment, and Red Wings fans can't imagine why I would think that maybe this guy is in over his head. And you can go in the comments of some of these press conferences that Steve Yzerman has done, and the amount, it's like Joseph Stalin wishes he could have had the level of commitment to the propaganda that these people, it is so pathetic that these fans are just, oh yeah, Steve is totally the right man for the job. We are 6 years in. If he's the right man for the job, I'd hate to know who's the wrong man. If he's doing a great job, I want to see him do a bad job. What do we got to go 0-82? Is that a bad job? Haven't made the playoffs since I was in high school. And don't give me, oh, well, that's Holland. That's how 6 years later, I don't care. 6 years later, the captain on his team is a Holland guy. 6 years later, he's on his third coach. So, yeah. No, I do not believe Steve Yzerman is the guy. When we got basically enough, when we did the Peter Mrazek extravaganza at the trade deadline, that was about the moment where I realized, oh, okay, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And he's just grasping at straws and living off of his resume. Living off of his resume as a player, mind you, not even as an executive, because remind me, how many Stanley Cups did the Tampa Bay Lightning win when he was the GM? Oh, yeah, that's right, none. He didn't win any. They immediately started winning as soon as they got rid of him. As soon as the new guy took over, and they made a couple of moves there, and then they started winning Stanley Cups. That's true. But they didn't win any when he was there. And that's the point. So, maybe if the Red Wings do somehow turn this around, it is going to be through massive moves. It is going to have to be a complete overhaul of this roster. The roster is soft. Development is stifled. Raymond's been solid, but I was expecting a whole lot more from him this year. Mo Seider hasn't matched his point total since his rookie year. Outside of those guys, I mean, you might have something in Edvinsson. You might have something in Casper or in Mazur. Who knows? Because Mazur got hurt immediately. Sebastian Cossa has not showed up. The general tenure, I don't even know what the culture of the Red Wings is. Just embarrassment. It's just nobody seems to want to be there. Nobody's getting better. It's not like they play a brand of hockey that I can say, okay, they're tough. They're scoring a lot of goals, but maybe their defense isn't all there. Or their defense is really there, but they're just not scoring a lot of goals, and maybe you got to wait. They're just kind of bland. They're not fast. They're not exciting. They're not fun. There's nothing about this Red Wings team that reminds me in any way of when the Red Wings were good, or really reminds me of either of the Stanley Cup teams. You watch the Stanley Cup, and then you watch your average Red Wings game, it's like you're watching two different... It's like you are watching the AHL. When you watch the Red Wings, it's like watching the AHL play the NHL. When you watch the Stanley Cup, it's like watching the two best teams out of this world good. And if you want to say, well, those are the two best teams, you can't compare. Why can't I compare this to them? We're 6 years in. Why can't I compare us to the really, really good teams in the league? Apparently because Steve Yzerman's got an infinite leash and he can never do any wrong. And it doesn't matter because look how good he is at drafting, even though none of these guys end up coming immediately. They always come up way late, and it takes another few years for them to actually develop into the superstars they're allegedly supposed to be. And to make matters worse, I didn't even think about it. I wrote this down. I was just rambling around and I forgot to mention this. There was a poll done by The Athletic. And they interviewed apparently 40 players or 40 prospects. I don't remember what it was. Do you want to know how many players wanted to get drafted by the Red Wings? Do you want to know? 0. Not one of them said they would like to get drafted by the Red Wings. So if Yzerman is so good, he's the best drafter in the whole wide world. Nobody's better at drafting than Steve Yzerman. None of these guys want him. I don't understand it. And I never will. So I'm looking forward to a very disappointing offseason. The draft is this Friday, and if I see the Red Wings take a player, I am not fully convinced that he will see that player play in the NHL as the Red Wings general manager. I am not convinced that will be the case. So, hey, YouTube, if you like clips like that, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We've got live shows every Tuesday night. Hope to see you there.